And right now it's time for that time when we have our special guest. Tonight's special guest is Alasdair Thompson, the former Mayor of the Thames District Council for 9 years and now CEO of the Employers and Manufacturers Association. Recession, finance company collapse, earthquakes. Is there any end to the trials and tribulations of New Zealand business? Tonight we find out from Alasdair. We welcome Alasdair Thompson as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Alasdair Thompson, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thanks for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
A perfect baby boomer. You are a baby boomer, aren't you?
Yes, 1st of the 11th, 46, 64 years old.
Yeah, well, I'm 64 in July, and you've just turned 64, haven't you?
Yeah, I got more hair.
Yeah. Well, it must have been something in the water when you were growing up.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to my party, and I'm going to be singing When I'm 64 by the Beatles.
Yes, good on you. I'm not a good singer.
So you didn't bother to sing?
No, not at all. No, I leave that to my wife. She's a nice singer.
We know that you're the Chief Executive Officer of the Employers and Manufacturing Association, but there is another side to Alasdair, isn't there? A little bit of history.
Oh, goodness me.
How did you become so well known in New Zealand?
Well, just going back before I started with the Employers and Manufacturers Association, EMA, back 12 years ago, I was mayor of the Thames Coromandel district for 9 years.
When I first met you.
Yes, and I stood for council at the back in sometime in the 1980s because we'd had some issues with the council over planning things, and we'd put up a bit of a fight and won it, and so I got attracted to
politics.
To sort the place out, and I was very proud of the 9 years I had as mayor because we did a lot of things. Our capital expenditure was among the highest in the country for 9 straight years in a row, and yet our rates stayed at the average level right throughout New Zealand. I was very proud of my time there because we had a high level of capital investment in sewage schemes, water schemes, roading and all the rest of it, and rates stayed at the average level right throughout New Zealand. If you told and explained to people what you were doing, sure, they don't like opening their pockets, purses, but they do understand, and they are rational. They make rational choices, and it's one of the criticisms I have with councils all over the country. They don't explain what they're doing.
Are you going to go to the opening of the new bridge?
The new bridge at Kopu, for sure. For sure.
That must be a dream of yours.
Oh gosh, yes. I remember standing out on the bridge, handing out pamphlets to people as they came over, and getting myself on TV to put pressure on for the government for money from what was then Transit New Zealand.
Took them a while, didn't it?
Oh gosh, yes, it did. But it's wonderful.
It's going to be finished this year.
Oh yeah.
Where does that passion come from, Alasdair? Where's that passion that you're talking to me today? But you live, breathe, and eat the manufacturers and the employers. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I grew up in a family, or I was only me as one boy. I had a stepsister or half sister, but there was only me, my mum and dad, and I think the fact that they were business people, farmers, but they also ran businesses other than farms, and seeing the struggle that they had often.
As self-employed people.
Self-employed people.
Yeah.
Self-employed people, seeing the struggles that they had, and the sweat, blood and tears to pay the tax bill and meet the monthly payments and that sort of thing. And pay their bills on time, and how good they were to the contractors they engaged, their employees and all that. They made sure everybody else got fed before they did.
Wow.
So that was one thing that I noticed. So I had this vision, I wanted to be a leader in the dairy industry or something like that. But then as I got further into high school and then university, I realised that I wasn't going to be a dairy farmer. What I would say is that early vision of wanting to have, not just for myself, but success for the
community.
I wanted success in the dairy industry, for dairy farmers, Now it's success for employers and manufacturers, the success of business. Our vision is your success. That's what we say at EMA.
When you left the mayoralty there in Thames, what happened after that?
Well, I had nothing to do when I stopped, and when I was voted out of office after 9 years. And I was thinking, do I go back into the labour market or start another business? And I thought, even before I finished, I was thinking, no, I want to get prepared to use all the knowledge I've got through my experience in public life, in public office, dealing with ministers. I'd also been the commissioner of the Waikato Area Health Board and things like this, and had been appointed to one or two boards of companies and things, and I'd learnt an awful lot in practice, but I had no ticket in it. So I got a ticket in it and thought I will have a career after this, aged 50-something.
There is life up at politics.
Yes, doing something in this public policy area. And the job at the EMA came up at that time. It was a perfect fit. I come from a business background. Before that, my family were farmers. I understand that it's business who employ the people, shareholders and workers coming together to create goods and services which we sell, which produces everything that of value. The better we do that, the more we do that, the richer and better off financially we all are, materially speaking.
So now we can talk about the EMA. It's called the Employers and Manufacturing Association. Why was there a need for it, and how big is it today?
Well, the Auckland Manufacturers Association started about 145 years ago, and of course that was in the early days of the New Zealand economy, and manufacturers were getting together. They wanted strength. They wanted to be able to manufacture things in New Zealand instead of importing everything from England or Britain. They wanted some protection for doing that, of course. So that's what motivated them. The Employers Association started about 105 years ago, and of course that came with the industrialisation of workplaces and so on, and the advent of unions and so on. So the other side of the fence, the employers also had to have its own act together, and that's what motivated the establishment of that organisation. In 1996, the two came together. Rogernomics and various other things happened that sorted out the corporate welfare, if you like, the protection that manufacturers had. Up until that point, that was all wiped. So manufacturers saw that what was important to them in the future was the success of business. So they said, well, that's what employers want too. So the EMA started. And then in 2000, the two federations, Employers and Manufacturers Federations in Wellington, joined together to create Business New Zealand, which is the national voice of business in this country nowadays.
Business New Zealand. Now, hasn't been a great climate lately, has it?
It is a difficult time. It's difficult worldwide. First of all, the global financial crisis, GFC, which was a meltdown of the financial systems, too much lending, creation of credit, creation of money, to lend to things that weren't successful, and housing in particular, where people couldn't pay, and so there was a crash. Then, as you say, we've had various other things that have happened. Christchurch with 2 earthquakes is going to be a major hit to the New Zealand economy, and a major increase in our public debt and private debt to recover that situation. Those are the bad sides of things. However, I must say that I don't think the country's down and out. Neither do I think that manufacturing is down and out. There's a perception that everything's made in China these days. Well, it's not true. It's alive and kicking in New Zealand.
That's exactly what
alive and kicking in New Zealand.
Oh, wonderful. And why is it alive and kicking?
Well, let me just say, just give you some stats. Firstly, it's the largest employer of people in Auckland, in the Auckland region. Secondly, it's the second largest employer of people right throughout New Zealand. Manufacturing is great for our productivity in this country. Professor Callaghan from Victoria University says that we need to produce $120,000 worth of value for everybody employed in this country. That's what we are doing. But if we want to catch up with Australia, we've got to get up to about $173,000 of value.
It's a little bit of a jump, isn't it? Is it possible?
Well, it is, but you have to do a lot of things to make it happen. Now, manufacturing in New Zealand produces about an average of $400,000 per person. And some parts of manufacturing, like the chemical product manufacturing and metal product manufacturing, they're producing $630,000, $850,000 per person employed. Fonterra produces, and I'm not talking about the farmers, I'm just talking about the manufacturing part of Fonterra, $350,000 per person. So the manufacturing side of our economy is going well. It needs to go better, because it's manufacturing that will lift us from where we are now to get to where we are in Australia.
So that image that we all have, that everything's now made in China, and our wharves are choked with stuff coming in from China, and there's and we've stopped manufacturing here. That's not true, is it?
Well,
Obviously,
it's
from
not
what
true.
you're saying.
It's
so how
not-
did we get that wrong
Look,
impression?
manufacturing accounts for about 13% of the GDP in New Zealand, and that's been pretty stable. What we've got to do, and what Tim Grosser, the Trade Minister, has said recently, is the government has a commitment, and this is the first time I've heard him say this, only earlier this week, to raise the GDP from exports 10%. We'll be cooking with gas. Now, it makes it sound easy when I say that, but there's lots of people right about what's got to be done. And the key word that goes around these days is innovation. Improving what you do, improving how you're doing, making your products and services better. Now, governments have got to be supportive of manufacturing, and the biggest thing that manufacturers are screaming for now is skilled workers, skilled labour. We are not producing sufficient numbers of people in New Zealand who come out of 11 years of compulsory education, with able to read and write, and then who can go on into tertiary qualifications. And I'm not talking university here. I'm talking about the 20 or 25% who come out of schools, can't read and write properly, going on into vocational trades training. These are the people that manufacturing need. So one of the things we're going to be emphasising this year's election year is that number one priority for government is to pay attention to skills training in New Zealand and introduce policies that will promote it and make that successful.
Oh, look, we could go for hours, honestly. There's so much to discuss, but we're running out of time. But a couple of things, just your comments anyway. The new Super City, how's it going from your point of view?
How's it going? It's too early to say yet, but
you're happy that it's...
Well, I'm happy that it's set up, but
yeah.
I have a sense that it doesn't, the people who've been elected haven't quite realised yet that they are councillors for a big area and have wider responsibility than their little pet hates and loves. And that comes on both the left and the right of that council.
So to finish, Alasdair, what about the outlook for manufacturing and the employers in Auckland, and speak for New Zealand as well? What's your feelings on it?
Right now, manufacturing is doing okay, especially if it's exporting to Australia, Asia and the Middle East. If it's relying on the domestic market, not so well. There's a thing called the Performance and Manufacturing Index, a measurement of contraction or expansion of manufacturing. It is 53 in New Zealand. Anything above 50 means it's expanding. In Auckland, it took a dip and it dropped to 49, so a bit of contraction in Auckland. But these things go up and down quite a lot. Ours is not doing too bad. The outlook further out is, I see in the last 3 months reported an increase in importation of industrial equipment for manufacturing, 41%.
Good sign.
That's
for the future.
A great sign. The fact that manufacturers are screaming out for vocationally trained, more vocationally trained people, a good sign. And I think the fact that the government has set this new target, that we're going to increase the GDP we earn from exporting manufactured goods and goods by 10%, is another good sign. So I think it's reasonably good, but I think there's a lot of things that governments and business people themselves have to do to make it really, really successful. And we're a little way off that yet.
Alasdair, thank you very much for coming in today.
It's a pleasure.
We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.